Let me share with you something here. We'll start with the word. This is Romans, let's see, chapter 10, verse 14. Here's what it says. It says, "How then can they call on the one they have not believed in? And how can they believe in the one of whom they have not heard? And how can they hear without someone preaching to them? And how can they preach, the preachers, unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who bring good news." And indeed, how beautiful are their feet. But sometimes having that kind of beautiful feet is costly. For instance, yea, verily, in the last millennium, 1995. I don't know if any of you, none of you remember 1995, do you? That's before your time, isn't it? Yes. Well, this was in the days before cell phones, so you know that we were cavish and carried stones for money and that kind of a thing. 1995, in February of 1995, I got married. My wife and I, Darlene, we got married, and at the end of that year would have been our very first Christmas together. Now, I say would have been because my plans changed. You know, when you get married and you think about your first holiday seasons together, right? You've gone from being a single person to a married person, and I think most couples have an idealized picture of what their first holidays will be like. Well, I certainly did. We're in Western Washington State, and so we were hoping for snow on Christmas. In Western Washington, we just get rain most of the time. It's just kind of dreary and drizzly, whatnot, not much snow. But we thought, oh, hey, maybe it's going to be snow for Christmas. And we would make a fire in the fireplace, and there would be our Christmas tree there. And we would have, people would send us undoubtedly Christmas tree ornaments that said Shane and Darlene Anderson and all of this stuff, right? It was going to be ideal until somebody said, hey, did you know there's a short-term youth mission trip in San Francisco? We should take our youth group. I'm like, why would we do that? Okay, because that's Christmas. This is vacation, right? Okay. And they explained about it. It was called the Extreme Workout. You're supposed to go to inner city San Francisco with your youth group. And I was the youth and young adult pastor at my very first church at that time there in the Seattle area. And to take my youth group over, and even worse, we would have to leave on December 25. Christmas morning, if we were going to make it down in time for this short-term youth mission trip. And I'm like, oh, no, I don't want to do this. And others say, oh, this is a great idea because it's a great idea. We've got a number of our youth that want to do it. And I'm like, And in the end, sure enough, bright and early, December 25 in the church parking lot, I am sitting there, very tired, sitting at the wheel of my dad's conversion van. He had generously donated it to the trip. Conversion van, this is in the 1990s, which meant it was carpet and wet bar and all this kind of stuff that was there. It was a nice vehicle for traveling. And we had 5 of our youth group that wanted to go. And so it's me, my wife, and 5 members of our youth group going down to San Francisco. Now, it's 17 hours. And as I left the church parking lot, I confess there were not holy thoughts in my brain. Think of what I could be doing right now. At the very least, I could be sleeping right now. It's Christmas Day. What am I doing driving this van down to San Francisco? Well, we drive the whole day. We spend the night on a hard gym floor at one of the other Adventist schools on the way, and then we get up early the next morning to drive the rest of the way to San Francisco. And as we're coming into Oakland, the van begins to sputter. And I suddenly remembered my dad had told me as we were leaving the parking lot, he said, hey, Shane, the fuel pump's been sounding kind of strange. There's a new one in the back of one of the seats in the back of the van. So if it dies, don't worry about buying another one. You'll have one there in the back. Okay, didn't think much of it. I'd grown up turning wrenches, and so, okay, no problem, fine. So as we're getting into Oakland, and everything you've heard about California drivers is completely true times 4 in Oakland, okay? In Oakland, you have big highways there, lots of lanes of traffic, and everybody is out to get wherever they're going just as fast as possible. And my van is sputtering. I push on the gas pedal, not much is happening. It says, who, me, the engine, nothing's really happening. I managed to crest over this hill and down this downward sloped off-ramp. I coast through the blessedly green stoplight into a gas station, and the van dies. Oh, man, you got to be kidding. It's Christmas Day. I don't want to be here. Now it's the 26th. I don't want to be here. And now the van, our only sole means of transportation, has died. And it's died in Oakland. Now, today I am sure, if you're from Oakland, I'm sure that Oakland is paradise on earth. I'm sure it's beautiful. Everything is just fine. In those days, in the part of Oakland that we were in, it was gang territory. People died every day in Oakland from gang violence. And this is not a great part of town that we have just coasted into. And I'm like, oh, man, I got these kids with me. I got my new wife here. what are we going to do? I try to start the van, and sure enough, I tell everybody, quiet. I'm trying to listen, and that fuel pump sounds awful. I'm like, oh, man, I have to change that thing right here. If you've ever seen conversion vans from the 90s, they're about that far off the ground. They're very low. And so I didn't bring a jack with me, and I couldn't find a jack that came with the van. And so I slide underneath the car, and I look and I find where the fuel pump is, and it's caked in mud, and it's dirty, and it's the original fuel pump, and I'm like, okay, fine. I get my tool bag, I slide back under the car. Now, you should know, those of you that are familiar with cars, I had previously at that time in my life worked almost exclusively on carbureted vehicles. I had not done fuel injection. And so this was new to me, but I thought, hey, a pump's a pump, right? So I get up there and I knock all the dirt off, and I'm getting dirty and grimy, and I get to the connections there. They're corroded. I was like, oh man, it's going to be a pain. So I gently turn. You don't want to bend a fuel line because you'll never get it back, right? And so I finally get it loose, and I take the connector off there, and the line between the pump and the engine, I'm thinking to myself, it's so corroded, it's probably going to take a lot of force to get this thing off. And I get my fingers up there as best I can in the small space, and I start to pull. And to my great surprise, it's like it's greased. I mean, it's just slow. It's just coming off there, like almost of its own accord. What I didn't know is that in those days, even when the key is off, fuel injection systems can have anywhere between 50 and 100 psi of residual pressure. Okay? And picture this. This is right here. I'm under this car like this. Okay? And I clear the end of that, and immediately all of that pressure releases, and the only place for it to go is down. Well, blessedly, I had my safety goggles on, right? So it hits my glasses, and it takes a while to tell this part here, but obviously this happened very quickly. It squirts, it hits my glasses, instinctively my eyes close and my head turns, and this stream of high-pressure fuel goes straight into my ear. Now, I'm guessing probably most of you have had unleaded in your ear at some time or another. It's just kind of a normal, no, it's not normal at all. It really hurts. The tissue on your eardrum there is extremely sensitive. I mean, if you poke it, it's sensitive enough. But when you put a high-pressure solvent on it and it saturates the inside of you, it was excruciating. And I yell, ah! And I pull myself out from the car and I yell, water! Somebody get me some water! Well, upstairs inside the van, the youth group's been having a great time, and they're playing cards, and and suddenly I'm yelling, "Hey, water!" Like, that sounds serious. And so one of the guys reaches out the window and he drops his water bottle. Okay. And so I get the water bottle. I'm trying to get the water into my ear, but I can't get it in there. It is burning. This is like acid eating away at your eardrum here. And I'm yelling, "Give me some water!" And a guy who's fueling up at one of the fuel islands here runs inside, grabs a case of bottled water, comes out, takes one out, and hands it to me, right? And I still cannot get this water into my ear. It's just burning away. And I'm thinking, I'm going to be deaf for life. This is disfigured. I'm covered with fuel down to my jeans like this, And finally, the guy that got the water said, "I know where the hospital is. I'll take you." Now, if I could snap a still shot of that scene, I would do it right here. Because you got to picture this. There's my dad's now completely incapacitated van, our only source of transportation. My wife, my newlywed wife, with 5 kids that are not her own, teens of varying social skills, okay, and temperaments. are standing there looking at me, not knowing what to do, and a stranger out of nowhere has just offered to take her husband away, okay, in Oakland. I'm thinking this is the best offer I've had all day. I go around the front of his car, I jump in, and we leave. And my wife later told me it's one of the worst feelings she's had in her life. As I drove away, and she's standing there with the kids in a van that doesn't work in Oakland. Well, in the meantime, we are making good time. This guy clearly did know where the hospital was or wherever it was that we were going. He knew where we were going. We're flying through the neighborhood. I mean, blowing through stop signs, and around all this, going straight through. And we arrive at the hospital, and I jump out. I don't know if I said thank you. I was in too much pain. Maybe I did, maybe I didn't. I run into the ER. These double doors, they slide open like this, and I go in. I'm standing there, and what looks like a doctor, he's got this surgeon's hat on, things, whatnot, and there's stuff on his shirt, so it looks like he's been in surgery. And I come in there, and I said, I am covered in unleaded, and it's in my ear. Even in Oakland, this does not happen every day. Okay? And the surgeon goes like this. No one strike a match. This was in the 90s. There were still some places, like if I remember right, where you could light up and smoke, inside. He said, no one light a match. Okay. This is the real reason that Adventists don't smoke, by the way, because you could go up in flames at any time. So he says, no one light a match, and I'm like, I need more than that. Can you help me, right? And he's very casual, as often ER docs are, and he says, well, you know what? All of our rooms are full right now, but let's see if we can find you a place to irrigate your ear. And so I kid you not, they went down the hall, and there was a janitorial closet, okay, that was filled with old mops and brooms and stuff, but he said, hey, there's a faucet behind this somewhere. It's like, I don't know, 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, this little broom closet. And he clears out all this junk and he turns on to see if there's still water pressure there. He says, here, put your ear into this. That was fine by me. So I put my ear into there for a long time. There's water running places down the hall, down my clothes and whatnot. And he comes by and a nurse is there too. She says, you'll need to take off your clothes. We have some hospital clothes for you. Now, you know about hospital clothes, don't you? They are not clothes. They're like Kleenex that escaped before they were put into a box. I mean, they don't close in the back, and these are not good things to wear. But these, the ones I had gas all through them, and so okay. And I get into the broom closet there, and I change my clothes, and then I get my hospital tissue on, and my ears now, at least, it's kind of subsiding. It still hurts pretty bad. And the nurse says, here, come and wait in this room. And it was a surgical suite that had just apparently only recently been vacated. And I don't know what happened there, but there was stuff on the floor that looked like it used to belong to a human being. I mean, it was gross. It was third world. There were bandages. There were parts of something on the floor that used to be living. And I'm sitting there on the bed, the stretcher there. The surgical light is still on. The doctor leaves. There's nobody there. My ear hurts. I'm wet. I'm wearing Kleenex, and I think to myself, why am I here? I mean, this is Christmas. I could be sitting at home with my new wife and my Christmas tree and snow on the ground and a fire in the fireplace. What am I doing here? Sometime later, a doctor finally came into the room. And he looks in my ear and he says, yeah, he said, you've definitely fried it a bit. He said, but I'm going to guess, we'll give you some ear drops that you should be able to get back to normal hearing. I said, okay, all right. And we worked out all the financial stuff and whatnot. And he said, okay, you can go. And I suddenly realized, well, where do I go? This is the days before these, right? And I think we came from that way. I think the gas station's that way, right? And I'm half naked. How far do I walk through gang territory before somebody decides to correct this problem, And I get out the front door and I start to head up the street carrying my bag, smelling like unleaded, and here comes my wife with 5 very petrified youth members trailing they were the most well-behaved I've ever seen them in that line behind my wife. Because what my wife had told them is said, okay, we don't want anyone to get killed on this trip. Your life depends on you. Don't look at anybody, don't make eye contact, just walk straight ahead, don't say anything, don't touch anything, just follow me. And so she basically was just following where the van had gone when she last saw it, okay? And blessedly, it was all on one street. And so they had started walking there, and you're like, oh, it's so good to see you. And oh, sorry, it's so good to see you. You know, like this one. Okay. And she said, what happened? What happened? So I told her the story, whatnot. And I said, yeah, I really need some more clothes. And so I don't have anything. So we walked through gang territory with Kleenex and 5 youth members and my newlywed wife back to the gas station. I got some other clothes. I got back under the van. I put in the new fuel pump, purred like a kitten, and we made our way to the mission trip. And what did we do on that trip? Well, we helped what the Bible refers to as the least of these. The people that have the least amount of money, the people that have the least amount of clothing, the least amount of food, least amount of shelter. We went to a soup kitchen, for instance, and a soup kitchen is not the right word. It was a place where you could come and you could get a meal 3 times a day. It stank. It was awful because it was the bottom of the food chain for food kitchens. Anything that was rotten that might have a part of it that was still good got sent to this place. Our job was to sort through it and to find what little good there was left and then give it to people. But it was good. It was not rotten. We had to cut off, this part of the bread or whatnot, and we would put it out there for people, and they were very grateful because there was no other way for them to get food. We went to one of the beaches in San Francisco to do beach cleanup, and it wasn't just paper there. They said, we need you to especially be on the lookout for needles, because we've had some pretty serious injuries here because drug users have been here on the beach, and people come down, little kids put a syringe, a hypodermic needle through their foot, and depending on what was in the needle, it can be really bad. So we look through all this stuff and clean that up. We spent time at an orphanage where many of the children there, their parents long gone, or they were dead, or they, in drug interactions or gang violence, they didn't have parents anymore. And so we were there for several days helping them, trying to encourage them, teaching them about Jesus, this kind of thing. Social services in San Francisco had arranged a number of things for us to do with these people. Sometimes we drive through small town America and we think, oh, that person looks poor, that person looks poor. When you get into the inner city of some of our cities in the United States, that's where you really see how bad things can get. Those people need help. And we gave it to them to the best of our ability there for the 4 or 5 days that we were there. And then we packed up and we cannonballed back and made it home in time for the next day school to start. Christmas vacation was completely gone. And I am so glad that we went. The stories of the martyrs, people that gave their lives for Jesus Christ, are inspiring. There's no doubt about that. It would be an honor for any of us to be counted amongst their number. But I can't help but also think that sometimes the stories of the martyrs are distracting. Because the real reason that we Westerners, including Christians, so often do not go to serve the least of these is not because we're afraid that we'll be killed, like the martyrs were, but because it is an inconvenience to us. It interrupts our holiday schedule. It makes life difficult at times. Sometimes you even get gas spurted into your ear. And that's why so often we don't go, because it's inconvenient to do so. And yet when we get to heaven, and we're surrounded there by the saints, and Jesus is there, we're on the sea of glass and the tree of life and the river of life, and we realize that there will never be pain or sin or suffering again, and we are home free. Not a single one of us, not a single one, is ever going to look back and say, boy, I sure wish I hadn't spent so much time helping the poor. What a waste of time that was. I sure wish I hadn't fed the hungry and clothed the naked. I sure wish I hadn't taught about Jesus. What a waste of time that was. It was so inconvenient. No one is going to say that when we get to heaven. Instead, every last one of us will look at the inconveniences and the difficulties and the hospital visits and the interruption to our schedules, and we will all say, oh, it was so worth it. It was so worth it because of the good that I could do to people that desperately needed it. Students, hear it and hear it well. Don't let the threat of inconvenience stop you from serving others as Jesus served them. Don't let the threat of inconvenience to your academic schedule stop you from being a student missionary for a year. Don't let the inconvenience that may come even to your physical person, maybe you'll miss a meal or two, maybe you'll have gas squirted in your ear, maybe you'll have to make a trip to the hospital, whatever it is. Don't let the inconvenience stop you from doing that which Christ has lovingly asked us to join him in doing. Because when you go, and you will be inconvenienced, it's going to happen. When you go and when you come back, you will look back with the eyes of Jesus and say, it was all worth it. It was all worth it. Never be afraid to give to others what Jesus has so freely given to you. May each one of us have beautiful feet, no matter the inconvenience it may bring. Let's pray together. Jesus, you went beyond inconvenience when you left the comforts of heaven to come to this planet. You did give your life for us, Lord. I pray, Lord, that we would do the same, Lord. If it means that we are actually a martyr, praise the Lord. It's an honor for us, Lord, but probably for far more of us, Lord, it will be a matter of inconvenience. May we embrace it. May we not shy away from serving you, Lord, because of the inconvenience to our lives and our schedules. But instead, may we have your heart and your eyes and your hands and do that which you have so graciously done for us. Bless us in this way, for we ask it in your name.